You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast hosted by Matt Franks and Zach Bechtold. We hope you enjoy this week's show, and you can find out more about us by going online at beardedtheologians.com, where you can pick up a few t-shirts, listen to a few old episodes, and find ways that you can connect with us. Thank you for listening. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
So, this week on the podcast, we're going to be looking at John 5. My thing list is 1 through 20, but Zach said he's not going to read all of 1 through 20. And so I'll let Zach do his thing as we talk about the healing on the Sabbath and how Jesus handled it in this particular case. So, Zach, do what you do.
Do what I do. So yeah, we're going to read John chapter 5, verse 5 through 15 or so. Like Matt said, if you'd like to take the opportunity to read all 20 verses or whatnot, you can do that on your time. That's your homework for the week. But here from the Gospel of John, a certain man was there who had been sick for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there, knowing that he had already been there a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" And the sick man answered him, "Sir, I don't have anyone who can put me in the water when it is stirred up. When I'm trying to get to it, someone else has gotten in ahead of me." And Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." And immediately the man was well, and he picked up his mat and he walked. Now that day was the Sabbath. The Jewish leaders said to the man who had been healed, "It's the Sabbath. You aren't allowed to carry your mat." And he answered, "The man who made me well said to me, 'Pick up your mat and walk.'" And they inquired, "Who is this man who said this to you? Pick it up and walk." The man who had been cured didn't know who it was because Jesus had slipped away from the crowd gathered there. Later, Jesus found him in the temple and said, "See, you have been made well. Don't sin anymore in case something else worse happens to you." And the man went and proclaimed to the Jewish leaders that Jesus was the man who made him well. And so, Matt, when you hear that story from John's Gospel, what sticks out to you? Muted. You're muted. 2024. It's muted.
The all of my things have changed because of the update. So start back again to answer your question. As a result, the Jewish leaders were harassing Jesus since he had done things on the Sabbath. Jesus replied, "My Father is still working, and I am working too." For this reason, the Jewish leaders wanted even more to kill him, not only because he was doing away with the Sabbath, but also because he was called God his own Father, thereby making himself equal with God. As you were reading and I saw that, I was like, we have to read that because
Yeah,
it's
for
like
reference, that's 16 through 18.
Yes. I don't know. Like, I think one of the problems we run into, and we're running into it today, is the law and how we practice the law. The law says you do not do anything on the Sabbath. The problem with that is there are times where you need to do things on the Sabbath.
Right.
And actually in the Talmud and a couple other places, there are stories about how things were handled on the Sabbath. And the Talmud is kind of a Jewish rabbi's response to Hebrew scriptures. And so like, it's kind of a commentary for the Bible, but how to handle things. And I think even then, we still have spaces where we're dealing with that today, and we talk about the law versus what's actually like how we should practice. And I think the idea with the Sabbath is that way things don't get out of control, and people actually taking time to rest and take care of themselves and work on their relationship with God. Like, I believe that that's important. The question here would be is, the way that even Jesus models this, how is what the man doing, picking up his mat, wrecking his relationship with God? It's not. It's a necessary thing for him to move forward and to be healed. Even the command to get up and walk is, amazing in its own right. I'm sure people were hearing this like, "Ah, he's not gonna get up. Hey, Jesus, do you know like
Right,
he
right,
can't.
right. Yeah, 38 years he's been here, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's been here for a while, Jesus. Like it's okay. And I think how we practice the law is important.
Hmm.
And I think this rings true today. Like this would be a great conversation today. And how do we talk about how do we practice the law versus what we know what it is? And um and I think there are times where the when laws are oppressive and cause harm,
Hmm.
we have to acknowledge that and maybe break those laws. Or in this case, like it was keeping a man from being healed. Come on,
Right.
really?
Yeah.
Like let's get the man healed. I don't know about
Mhm.
you, but let's get this man healed.
Right.
What about you, Zach?
Well, well, that's two things stick out. I've always loved this story. One, it rhymes so much with the paralytic in Luke's gospel, where they lower the four friends lower him from the
Not
roof
just in
down to
Luke's
the
gospel.
huh.
Not just in Luke's gospel.
I know, but I like it better in Luke's gospel, so that's what we're going to talk about. Uh, but they lower him down to the roof at the feet of, and it's the same command, right? It's the same healing of pick up your mat and go. And so I love it. I love it because it rhymes with that. But what sticks out to me in this healing is Jesus asked the question rather than just giving the healing command of pick up your mat and go. He asked the prefacing question of, do you want to get well? And the man says, yeah, but I don't have anybody to help me. The water stir in this pool and you're supposed to get up and go, but I can't. Nobody's there, and everybody beats me to it. And so he has this willingness to be to be healed, but he hasn't asked for help. He can't ask for help, and for a lot of cultural reasons, right? Nobody's going to touch him on the Sabbath because work, right? Picking him up, the cleanliness stuff, like there's a lot that's going into it on this day. And like you said, Jesus looks at it and says, What are we talking about?" Right? Like, we're not going to heal this guy on today because it's our day off. This is what we should be doing. This is the compassion we should show on the Sabbath of any day, rather than just using it as an excuse to continue to ignore and exile this man. And so I love it for that. It's the it's the question of, do you want to get well? And then, like you said, at on the back end of that you read in verse 16 through 19, um, not only because he was doing away with the Sabbath, that's the viewpoint that the religious leaders and elite have of Jesus is just doing away with the Sabbath. We're not going to have Sabbath anymore. Who does this guy think he is? And how often do we hear that rhetoric in today's context of the church that if we change, if we do, we're just getting rid of all of the things that we've had. We're getting rid of the Bible. We're getting rid of this. We're getting rid of that. We're just doing whatever we want. And yet Jesus sees the need of a human, of a person to be made well over what the law is calling us to do. And in fact, rather than over what the law is calling us to do in community with what the law is calling us to do. If this man can't get to the pool and be healed, he can't have a Sabbath. He can't rest. He can't be himself and renew and live into the law, right? Like Jesus is, in my opinion, Jesus isn't doing away with the Sabbath or with the law or breaking it. He's living into it, and what I believe God called us to, and called uh, the early Hebrew people to, and finding rest and renewal. And if people are hurting around us and we ignore them, I don't think we're taking a rest. I don't think we're living into the Sabbath.
Well, I also like, what about the reply? My father is still working and
Hmm.
I'm working too. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, there's just something about that this would be, if I were, this would definitely be a fun text to preach this week if I were preaching it, to talk about how we need to acknowledge God's still at work in this world.
Hmm.
And I know like it's n- it's in a way that we have to call attention to it.
Hmm.
And that's God working on us, but also working through us.
Hmm.
Talking about how we can be a beacon of hope. Or actually, and let's go back to that your story in Luke and Mark and Matthew about the men lowering the guy down to be healed. It took people willingness to tear up the roof.
Hmm.
It took people willing to lower the man down.
Right.
And it let's be honest, it took the man willing to say, "I need to be healed."
I need to be healed. Right.
And so the question, we could wrestle with would be, where do you need healing,
Mhm.
and when are you going to get up?
Right.
And I think that that would be a fun thing to wrestle with
Yeah.
on that.
Well, and that's I picked this. I'm preaching this weekend, and I picked it to preach because I'm headed on renewal leave for July. And that question, do you want to get well, is truly the background of this renewal leave, and the questions that my leadership and people have asked me of, do you want to rest? We see that you need some rest. Here it is. And my willingness, and at times leading up to it, my unwillingness to say, no, I don't need rest, I can keep going. And their reminder to me of, do you want to get well? We're here to help you. Um, and that willingness for me to ask for help. Ask for help filling the pulpit, ask for help doing all the things, asking for help just to take rest. Um, I think is so, so important, and something that I just, at least for me, I don't do it well, obviously, but I think us as people and as pastors and as leaders, one, we don't ask for help well, and especially when it comes to rest, our willingness to rest in a healthy way, few and far between. It's really hard. Let's name that. But we're just not good at it. And that are you willing is a question that keeps echoing in the back of my head. Are you willing to rest so that you can come back and continue to lead us in a way that's hopeful and fruitful? And I hear that in this guy's story. Are you willing? Um, and like me, he's got some excuses, but at the end of the day, he's willing, and he picks up his mat and goes, and is able to go and share the good news of who brought healing. And so I don't know, it resonates with me for a lot of reasons. Regardless of what is coming up in my life, I've always loved the story, and it's because of that question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely one of those classics that
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie, when I saw that we hadn't talked about this, like I was a little shocked that we had not talked about this. But
I was too.
there's a lot of Bible we still have yet to process. So
No.
I mean, we do need to do a whole series on Leviticus just for chagrins.
It actually would be fun. I don't hate Leviticus as much as I did 20 years ago. So it would be a fun jaunt.
Maybe this fall. Uh
How about next fall? How about you take a Sabbath, a renewal leave, and we can talk about it?
no, because that just gives me more time to think about it. um So Zach, where have you seen God at work in your life lately?
Um, Geez, all over the place. And leading into what we've talked about today, and being willing to ask for help, to take rest, uh, let renewal and healing take place, and all of the people in my life, both family and friends, and church members and leadership in the church, who have just been overly encouraging and hopeful and helpful in supporting the work that we're doing here as a church and the excitement that's going on there. But just their willingness to identify that we've done a lot, and holding me accountable to get some rest and spend some time with my family, because they know I have the propensity to overwork and not take time. And so, just their care for my soul, and not one person, has said to me, to my face of, what do you need rest for? Why are you taking vacation? Why are you doing you work on Sundays, right? And so thankfully, the folks that have those comments have kept them to themselves, and 99.9% of the folks that surround me in this appointment have been overly supportive, and that makes it easier to take a step away and be able to do that. So I, I know not everybody has that, and I'm grateful and privileged and all the things to have that deep soul care. And so, yeah, it's more than I could ask for, and how the Holy Spirit's moving. So I appreciate it for my people. How about you?
I was reminded last week that there's power in not yet,
Hmm.
and had a situation occur where that was just that was kind of what was revealed to me. And to be reminded that sometimes not yet is actually a good thing. And that there's power in that. And so um and just knowing that, like, what is to come, next week, I mean, we're going to record on July 4th, right? Like, that's legit. Like, we're going to record like we always do from the baseball field, or July 5th from the
Which
baseball
I
game.
was like, I'm driving on July 4th, but we can. Yes,
I
we
mean,
will record from the
uh,
Rockies game on July 5th
I
next week.
mean, it's become a new tradition that we do that. It's the annual, even though it's only the
It's
second one.
the third one,
Sorry, I've
fourth one.
always I've always seen I just saw something this morning that's like first annual. I was like, how can you say it's the annual when it's the first? But that's my own
Yeah,
problem
back to
that
the
I
Holy
deal with.
Spirit working in
Back
your
to the
life.
Holy Spirit working in my life. There is power in the not yet.
Mhm.
And sometimes we have to evaluate, know what's going on, like do some more external work or internal work to be able to know when is the right time. And to me, that's kind of revealed to me last week. And I was sitting in a TP and this happened. So uh, just just stop and think about that as you will. But it was definitely something that was I needed to see and be reminded of, and grateful for that. As I'm getting ready to enter into a busy season of 3 funerals in the next 16 days. And getting ready to start year number 3, year number
Mhm.
15, and all those fun things. To be reminded of the not yet is really a powerful thing, and that the time will come.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You know what I find you talk about starting year 3 and for the first time in the 11 years we've known each other, 10, how I don't know, it's a long time. Uh our appointments have aligned in when we have moved. Uh and there's something exciting about year 3, and I think it's why I'm so grateful my folks are insistent I rest. Because I do. There's something big about year 3 in an appointment that cool stuff happens and we're settled in, and I think our folks on both ends and in the places that we serve see that, and I'm excited about it.
I am too, because there'll be things that will happen that we've been waiting.
Yeah,
I foresee there are things that are just exciting, and
yeah,
I mean, the spirit is definitely moving
yeah.
here, and
And
that's
and it's like you said, it's that hope and the not yet, right? It's that for the last couple of years it's been not yet. And now we can see those things that have been on the horizon become right nows.
yeah.
And some of them stay not yet, right? I
And
think
I'm
there's
not
some
lying,
hope there.
like there's power in being a C. So, for those that don't know about the disc profile, I'm a C, and I sometimes, even though the not yet it can be painful, it's also very helpful for people like
Right,
me.
right.
So, there's power in that. So, we want to thank our listeners for listening. Encourage you to go listen to all of our past and previous shows. We uh, are thankful for you. Encourage you to go on our website and buy a few items for friends and family, as you have all sorts of things that are going on. If you're getting a new pastor, what a great way to receive a
Oh,
new pastor than by getting them a Bearded Theologians coffee mug, t shirt, or anything else that you feel like they need. We are grateful for you. And so for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
We took 2 or 3 from the Braves.
I want you to subscribe and like this video and push that thumbs up.
Thank you for listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all social media outlets. You can check out old episodes and more information at beardedtheologians.com. Thanks for checking us out.